Welcome to week 5 of our creative challenge. This week, we're staying in Illustrator. If you don't know already, Illustrator's my favorite, so you'll have to indulge me. And we're going to be creating a winter scene inside of Illustrator. Now, you can use some of your icons that you created in week 3. You can use the snowflake you created in week 4. Or you can go a totally different direction with this winter scene. Now, part of what we're going to be exploring this week is kind of design trends and where you find those and how you look at inspiration. And so our design trend that we're using for this winter scene is a paper cutout look. So this is kind of a fun, bringing some 3-dimension into a 2-dimensional artwork look. And you can apply this to anything you do and really create something unique. So that is our goal for today. If you don't have Illustrator, I've got a little project for you to create inside of Spark. So we'll be over there as well. So join me, let's create and have fun this week. So I thought I'd start our conversation before we even get into creating our paper cutout look, is to show you some ways to get inspiration. So I'm on Behance, and if you are not on Behance, I definitely encourage you to get in there, start following people. It's a great place to explore different looks, different trends. And so here's a lot of cool paper cuts, and this one's kind of similar to stylistically what I'm heading for today, but you can see all kinds of cool things that you can create with these paper cut looks that I'm going to show you today. I'm also going to point out that one of the things you can do when you search on Behance is look for design trends. And what I like about doing this, so this is artist contributed design trends, and they do it in all the main areas of design. So I enjoy a lot of these different things, but I think it's fun to just kind of compare and contrast, see how maybe illustrations are being used in motion design. But part of what you should be doing as a creative is keeping an eye on trends. You never want to just be a follower. You want to keep an eye on trends, be moving with that stream, but also doing your own thing, doing your own interpretation of trends and what those look like. So just a couple of my favorite places to find those. Let's hop over to Illustrator. And so this is where we are headed. This is kind of the final that we will come up with here. And what I want you to do is kind of think about all the techniques we've learned while we've been working in Illustrator. You know, this is our 3rd Illustrator project, so you've built up some nice skills and things that you can do. We certainly haven't got to every part of Illustrator, and trust me, that's hard. I would love to show you everything. But hopefully you have some skills and you can kind of pick and choose what you want to do. We're over here, we've got an artboard. You can do whatever size, and I want you to play with, maybe you want to do a square so you can easily share on social. Maybe you want to have that in one of the screen sizes. This is completely pick your own adventure. So I've pulled my color palette off here to the side, and you can see I'm kind of combining a couple of different palettes in here for our final look. So I'm going to start by creating my background, and I'm going to go ahead and pull out my shape tools because we're going to be using those quite a bit today. So here's my rectangle tool. I'm going to draw a nice big rectangle, and I'm actually going to make a gradient. So this is a new skill for you. So I'm going to pull out my gradient panel, and so you have 3 different types. You have a linear gradient, you have a radial gradient, and then you have a point gradient where you can kind of set up this gradient however you want. I encourage you to experiment with those. You don't have to do the type of gradient I'm going to do. I'm going to do a linear gradient, and I'm actually going to pick and choose different colors. So one way you can do that is in this slider, these are your color swatches. So I'm going to double click, and you can see that brings up my swatches. So right here, I can select those colors. I can also click, and so I've selected that point, grab my eyedropper, and then eyedropper my color. I can also add new points if I want to, but I'm happy with this gradient. Now I can also change the direction of this gradient if I want. So in my toolbar, I can just grab my gradient tool and change how that gradient is drawn. I'm going to go ahead and leave it like that. That makes me happy. And one other thing I will say about the gradient is if you like it, you can always add this gradient to your swatches panel. So you just need to pull out your swatches panel, open up that gradient, and just drag that gradient into that swatches panel. Now we're going to start thinking about the objects we want. And I know you saw in the example we did a cutout. I'm going to do that at the very end. So I like to design, even if I plan to do that like window look, and by the way, you can do kind of the same thing and have it look more like a snow globe. But I like to design on the entire artboard to get started with. So I'm going to make some happy little clouds. So I'm going to grab my ellipse tool. And what I want to use is one of these whites. Now, both of these whites are not pure whites. So one of the design recommendations that I really encourage you to kind of consider is pure whites and pure blacks. There's a place for them, but it's often not in your design as much as you think it should be. So think about how you can use maybe a slightly grayish white, a slightly yellow white, a navy blue, all of those things. So I'm just drawing some clouds. And then I'm going to select all of my objects. So switching to my selection tool. And then I'm going to go into my properties panel and I'm going to use the pathfinder. Now before we use the shape builder, they do the same things. I'm just showing you a new way to do something. And so let's draw another set of clouds. So notice as I'm drawing these clouds, I'm thinking about drawing different shapes. I don't want my clouds to look the same. I want to kind of create some variety here. And I'm going to show you another way you can select things. So I'm going to grab my magic wand. And notice it selects everything in that color story. So that's an easy way to start selecting things. You can also use your lasso tool to select stuff. So I can come in here and lasso all these objects as a way to select them too. So just a couple of other ways besides this shift and select that you can do that. So I've got all my objects here and I'm going to pathfind those together. Now if I wanted to copy one, I can do that. I kind of like two clouds. I'm happy with that. So now we're going to do some ellipse for the hills that I have in mind. So this is where you want to think about how things really look when you look at a landscape. So if you will go on a journey with me and envision a hillside, and you know how those hills in the distance always look darker than things that are closer? We need to reflect that experience in our artwork. So and that's atmospheric perspective, not to get, so we're going to draw some ellipse, and I'm just thinking about like how this little happy hill is going to look and what color it's going to be. And so I kind of like that. Maybe I want to draw another one, and these are going to be overlapping. And I'm not worried about where they kind of end up overlapping on this edge. I'm going to show you a trick for that here in a second. So I like those hills, and now I want to draw some hills in the back. And I kind of want to think about how these are going to start relating with each other. and I want to send this to the back. So with my selection tool, I'm just going to control click, arrange, and watch what happens if I send to the back. It's going to go behind the gradient. So here's a little trick. When I need to send things to the back, I'm going to select that background gradient and that shape, and then I will send those to the back. That allows me to maintain that stacking order and kind of respecting that stacking order while still sending things to the back. So I'm liking that hill, and I think we need one more over here. And he's going to be a little taller. And I think I might extend him a little bit more. Now I can also step this backward. So if I want to just step things backward, a great keyboard shortcut is Command and left bracket. Because I really want that in front of that hill, but behind these two. So let's talk about how we're going to help this overlap. Actually, first I'm going to copy and paste. So I'm going to copy that background shape, and I'm going to paste it. Command C to paste, to copy, and Command F, I'm just going to paste it in front. I'm going to grab this hill, and then over my Pathfinder, I'm going to choose the intersect. Let's look at what that looks like in our layers panel. So this is the layer we are on, and I'm just going to we basically use that background copy to create a mask. So let's do that again. I've got my background. I'm going to Command C, Command F. If you don't remember keyboard shortcuts, it's just a copy and a paste in front. I'm going to grab this hill and intersect. And I'm going to show you a couple of different methods for kind of trimming these overlap areas today. So this is just a really quick one. And you get a nice clean border. So now our hills are there. They look nice. They're ready to go. So let's start thinking about what else is going to live in our landscape. And we're going to make some trees. Now, if you remember last time we made trees, we used triangles. I think trees are a great opportunity for you to flex your skills with the pen tool. Also, I think that when you use the triangles, they're almost a little too perfect. And using the pen tool allows you to be a little more organic as you create your tree. And the cool thing about doing this is we can always edit all of these points. So I just grab my direct selection tool, and let's say I want to bring that point in, and then I'll bring that one in. And again, I'm not looking for perfection here. I'm just looking for my style of tree. Grab my eyedropper tool with eye, and we'll fill that with green. So I'm going to draw one more tree. I'm trying not to copy and paste my shapes during this because it creates a little more organic variety for me. Oh, this tree got away from me here, y'all. He's going to be a short, chubby tree. That's okay. As Bob Ross would say, you get to decide. You get to decide how your trees are going to look. So the other technique that I taught you was using that line tool to cut these in half to create that kind of two color, that shaded look. We're going to do the same thing here, but I want to show you a different way to do it. So I'm going to take this little tree, I'm going to copy, and I'm going to paste it. And And I can leave him here, so I just pasted him to the front, or I can move him, you decide. And I'm going to grab the points on this side. So I'm in my white arrow, my direct selection tool, and I'm going to grab these outer points, and I'm going to delete them. Now, you're probably like, Heather, why did you do all of that? Well, the idea is I'm going to get half a tree. I just realized I forgot to get, our trees need to have some type of stump on them, don't they? Look at this, poor trees. There we go. Now they have some things going on, and we'll intersect these. Excuse me, we're gonna unite all of these happy little fun funky trees. And I'll go ahead and delete this one and copy this one again. There we go. All right. I'm going to grab these edges, and I'm just going to delete them. So I've got a tree. Now I can decide down here how much of this do I want to delete. But now I've basically got half of my tree. And again, it doesn't need to be perfect. Now with that half of a tree, I can pick this lighter color green, or this is a great opportunity for me to use my shades and tints. So if I wanted to go a little bit darker with that color, just come up here, go into those shades, find one that I like. And I'm kind of digging that look, just subtle. So let's do that with this tree. So now we have some different looking trees here, and that is exactly what we want. Now, if I come in here, I can be very exacting about this and I can line this, or if I want to just leave a little bit of an edge there, that can be one of the artistic choices I create here. I can also, if I decide, I don't like this little point down here, boom, he's gone. So now I'm going to group these together, and I want to show you one more thing you can do. So I've got this in a tint. I'm actually going to, a shade. I'm actually going to switch it back to the original and show you another thing you can do within your appearance panel. So I'm in my appearance panel, and I want to be down here in my fill. And so I'm going to click on the word opacity, and I'm going to change my blending mode just to darken. So this is another way that you can create just that little bit of variety in there. And again, you decide how you want to do these. This is just to add a little extra depth to our artwork. And even as I bring in these trees, maybe I want to try different methods with each one of them. I will let you decide that. So now we'll move these little trees into position. Decide where we want these to live. Scale them down. You can even decide that, I want him to be a little skinnier, and maybe he wants to be a little shorter. If I want to hold him in perspective, I just want to hold my shift key down. And I'm just going to create a little grouping of trees, and I can use that arrange, bring to front, just to decide how those are going to look together. Let's get a few other trees copied in here. Now, one of the other things I want to, we're going to create a snowfall scene. So I want to think about how I could make it look like snow had fallen on these hills. So a couple of different ways I can do that. So I'm going to grab first this hill, and I'm going to use that knife tool. And what I want to do is make sure I cut two sides of this path. So I'm cutting here, I'm looping around, cutting over here. I've cut that path. That's going to allow me to use my direct selection tool and then paint that white. So now I've got kind of a white hill. Now I'm noticing my hill is getting lost back here. That won't always end up that way, so don't worry too much about that. The other thing I can do, and this is a great solution as well, is that Command C, Command F. So now I've got a copy of this, and I can just bring that other shape down. And then this back shape is going to become white. So now it looks like that has all fallen. So something I want to show you with the clouds that you can do. I've selected my cloud, and in my properties I have this offset path. So I'm going to offset the path. So basically I created an outline of that. I could do this also with the hills to create that look. I can decide how much that offset is, and I can hit OK. So now basically I have two cloud shapes. Well, this is a great opportunity for me to use a little bit of a gradient. So we're going to go back into our gradients, and there's that one that we used before. This time, however, we're going to start over here, and I'm going to do a white, and then on this side I'm going to do that yellow. And so it just creates a bit of a shading for my cloud, a little bit of dimension. Kind of like we did with the trees, it's just another technique. In fact, you could do this same technique with the trees if you love it. So we'll offset our path. Again, you can play with those options. With this, we're going to apply that gradient. And now we've got some kind of cool looks to our clouds. All right, so we've got some kind of cool things happening here. I'm going to show you one more thing that we can do with our trees. So, we offset this shape just a little bit. There's another way that we can create a little bit of an offset on these trees, and I encourage you to experiment with it. And it's through the effect menu. And first I want to explain to you the differences between these two effects, because it feels like you have a lot. Illustrator effects. So remember, Illustrator is vector based. It is line based. All of these effects are line based, meaning I can scale them. They still look good. I don't need to worry that they're going to be pixelated. These effects, which are exactly like the ones you know from Photoshop, will not scale well. There is a time and place. If I know what size I'm going to be, I don't need to worry about scaling. This opens a whole new world to you. But just note that difference. So we're going to put a 3D bevel on this. It will not look like that. So we're going to just have it be a front. And then we can kind of come in here and experiment with how we might want this bevel to look. So I'm just going to be very conservative with this and just do a -2 on my bevel. And I'm going to change my extrude depth, let's go 25. And notice that this is just previewing constantly. And I'll hit OK. And so you can see we've got kind of this edging going on with it. So if you like that look, that's just another way to add a little bit of depth and dimension with this style. All right, so here's the big secret of paper cut. It's drop shadows, which I'm sure you saw. So grab your objects, and now we'll apply our drop shadow. Effect, stylize, drop shadow. You might want to experiment with these. I think it's kind of fun to kind of make up your own. Let's just see how we're looking, and I'm going to zoom in here. Let's kind of see that coming in there. One of the things that's good to do here is to really experiment with the offset. So you see that 25-point offset? There it is. And there that is. So you can see where the X and the Y are going as to how you want things to look. And then let's increase our blur so you can see what that looks like. So that's a blur. I like a really tight blur on these. I think like that harder edge looks really nice. If I wanted to do 10 on this, let's see how that's looking. Kind of liking that. You can also go negative numbers, and you can see that moved it over here. So you decide how that drop shadow is going to look as you start applying it to your objects. Don't go back and apply a new effect. So if you need to edit your drop shadow, go into your appearance panel and you'll see there's your drop shadow. Double click it and then you can come back in and play with things again. Okay, so through the magic, this is like the cooking show part of it. I got all my drop shadows. A couple of things I just want to mention. I was getting a little aggressive. So this is my final setting, a 2-2-10 with just like kind of that blue-black color that we picked. I wanted to point out on my clouds that as I experimented, I really kind of like doing a light gray color on that. So experiment with your colors, experiment with how you want those to look. You'll get kind of something different whenever you try to play with that. So now we need to add some snow. So I have created 3 little ellipses right here. So these are just straight ellipse with a white fill. What I'm going to do is make those a symbol. So you have a symbol panel, which allows you access to all kinds of cool things, just like the color library. I encourage you to explore that. We're going to go ahead and add a new symbol. I always make these a graphic. Something always happens when I use the movie graphic that I'm not quite crazy about, and I'm sure it's something that I've done wrong there. Hit OK. And so you'll just add each of those. So you want a big, medium, and small, just add each of them. And then we are going to use something called the symbol sprayer. So I'm going to start with our small one. And then over in our panel, you have something that looks like a spray can. This is your symbol sprayer. And I'm going to spray small ones. Now, I can change, you can see I've got the size of my brush. Using my bracket, I can just change the size of my brush. So that's going to change kind of the area I'm covering. So we've got our small ones. Now we'll move on to our medium ones. And then I want to kind of start thinking about maybe filling in some of these blank areas. Playing with some colors here. You can also, if you want to have a little extra fun, go up to your effect menu and play with maybe an outer glow on those. That's fun to do. And now we'll add some of our big snowflakes. Now also with your symbol, you can do all kinds of things to manipulate these. So this is the symbol screener. So it's just going to add some opacity to these. And that can create, again, the depth and color is what gives you kind of that dimensional look. Okay. So now we're going to kind of tidy up these edges, but one of the things you want to do at this stage is kind of make sure everything is where you want them. So I'm going to move some stuff, move more into the center of this image so that when we do our little peek through, I'm not cutting anything out. You cannot move things after you create your clipping mask. So make sure you've done all your moving before your clipping mask. So I'm just going to draw a rectangle over my whole object, and I'm going to select everything, and I'm going to control and make clipping mask. And you can see that trimmed all of the content that we had roaming around on the outside. Now we want to do our little peek through. And this is our clipping mask right up here. So everything in this is inside this clipping mask. So like if I want to move this tree, that's where I need to be to move anything in that. It's kind of a pain in the tuchus to try to move content within a clipping mask. So I always like to get things arranged. All right, so I'm going to grab my rectangle tool, and I'm going to have my peek through be white. You can have it be whatever color you want. And then I'm going to draw lips on top of that. And that just has a fill too. So I'm going to select both that ellipse. Make sure those are kind of somewhat even. I could use my align tool if I really wanted to make sure I had this perfectly aligned. I'm going to select both of them, and then in my Pathfinder I want to exclude. And so here's my little peek through. I think it looks nice just for consistency to add a drop shadow to that. And so there's our drop shadow. This is the same drop shadow I used on the clouds, by the way. And now, again, if I wanted to move anything within this, like this little tree right here, I need to open up my layers panel, get into that clipping mask, and I need to find that tree. And there it is. And so I'm going to move him down because I think he would be interesting kind of just peeking the very top of him. So you can move and tweak things, and then this is your final winter paper cutout scene inside of Illustrator. Enjoy. I can't just wait to see what you make.